Well, g'day, folks. It's George Christensen here. Thanks very much for joining us. I'm a former Australian politician and the editor of Nation First, which you can find at nationfirst.com.au. Thank you very much for joining us for this live stream on central bank digital currencies and how they are a threat to your freedom. Firstly, we're going to look at what central bank digital currencies actually are. And to do that, you're going to have to bear with me because I'm driving this thing solo today. And so it's a system meant for someone else to help you out. But you're going to have to bear with me while I go through various websites that we're going to look at, various video clips that we're going to look at to understand three things. What are central bank digital currencies or central banking digital currencies, CBDCs, as they're called? How are they a threat to your freedom? And most importantly, what we can do about this threat to your freedom. So stick with us. We're going to be looking at a number of different websites to answer these key questions. We're going to look at a number of different videos and, we'll see what we can find out together about CBDCs. So here we go. Stay tuned because we're going to now, through the power of the interwebs, start having a look at some websites. Just bear with me one moment. Okay, folks, I hope that you can see what I can see here. And this is, I'm just going to, yes, you can see what I can see. Bear with me just one moment as I make sure that set up right. Okay, so this is from the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve Bank over in the United States. And it says, what is a central bank digital currency? So this is the globalist elites version of what a CBDC is. It's a digital form of central bank money that's widely available to the general public. Now, they're saying that central bank money refers to money that is a liability of the central bank. In the US, there are two types of central bank money: physical money issued by the Federal Reserve. Now, that's fiat money, paper money, or the plastic money that we see in Australia, polymer, and digital balances held by commercial banks at the Federal Reserve. So basically, they're saying that instead of these types of finance, what they're going to do is bring in a form of central bank money, a digital form. So not paper, not polymer, a digital form of money that, unlike what previously has happened with central banks, that they issue the money to the banking system, they issue money to governments. Instead, they're going to make this money widely available to the general public, a digital form of central bank money. So who has done this thus far? Well, obviously, the US is considering it, as we see here. The US has released a discussion paper earlier this year, the Federal Reserve that is, that examines the pros and cons of potential US central bank digital currency. They are currently exploring it. There's an executive order that Biden's put out. We'll talk about that a bit later. But look, who else is talking about it? Well, Cointelegraph tells us that Russia is planning to roll out a digital ruble, a CBDC. They're testing it now. They expect to implement official banking rollout 2024. So that's Russia. Russia is also on that phase. China, as we know, is already testing a CBDC. They've got the ECNY. That they're using it. They're using it with their transport system. So there you go. China is well on the way to a CBDC, and that sort of spells something, to be quite honest. There is a reason that communist China is way ahead of the game here. Great Britain is also exploring the CBDC. Are they going to follow China? That's the question that many people are asking. Britain, Coin Idol tells us, is also going down the CBDC path. And actually, we'll have a look right now, I think, at what has been said by Great Britain. I'll just stop sharing this. we'll have a look at what the former Chancellor of the Exchequer in the UK had to say about CBDCs.
Today, I'm proud to say that under the UK's presidency, the group of the world's 7 most advanced economies, the G7, is launching a set of public policy principles for retail central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Central bank digital currencies could be a digital version of money, a bit like a digital banknote that could be used alongside physical notes and coins. Unlike most of the digital money people use daily today, it would be issued directly by a central bank, like the Bank of England in the UK. And governments and central banks across the world are working together, looking into what having a digital currency might mean in practice. This includes issues that people care about, such as ensuring users' money would be safe and secure, that it could work with other ways to pay, would be energy efficient and available to everyone. A potential CBDC could offer businesses and consumers new ways to pay in the future. It's all part of the wider story of digital innovation that has delivered benefits to millions around the world and in the UK. The decision on whether to launch a central bank digital currency is for each country to make, and no G7 jurisdiction has yet made that choice. These decisions raise important questions about the reshaping of our economy, financial systems, and the way in which people interact with money and payments. That's why working together and careful evaluation with our international partners is essential. In the UK, earlier this year, I announced a new joint task force between the Treasury and the Bank of England to look into a potential CBDC as a complement to cash and bank deposits. We're also hearing from firms, technology experts and others. Under the leadership of the UK, this report today will help support and inform exploration of CBDCs in the G7 and beyond. With these principles, the G7 is leading an important step change in the global policy conversation. The report covers a range of important matters, such as financial stability, cyber resilience, energy efficiency, privacy, inclusion, and tackling illicit finance. These factors should all be considered when designing and potentially delivering.
Okay, so there you go. There's the spin from the very slick-looking former Chancellor. I think he's the former Chancellor of the Exchequer over in the UK. We'll go back to sharing the screen, and I've worked out how to do this a lot better, folks. So apologies for what was going on before there, where we were seeing a platform I'm currently using. So we're up to the Great Britain. Great Britain currently looking at CBDCs, as you heard there. There's all the fluff. They think it's a wonderful new thing that they could look at. In fact, so much that promoting it to the whole G7, the great 7 economies in the world. And so that's why Japan is also looking at its finance ministry is looking at CBDC insofar as actually they've employed a whole heap of extra people to go and deal with it, according to Channel News Asia. We go on to India. India pressing ahead with a pilot on central bank digital currencies. Now they're looking at that in relation to wholesale businesses, not the general public, but it's the precursor to rolling something out in the general public. Colombia, I mean, it goes from these great countries down to these just third world outfits. Colombia looking to explore CBDC, according to cryptodaily.uk. Nigeria, the home of scams itself, already is got a CBDC apparently for the e-naira. The whole world is going down this track. Just to prove it, here is CBDC Tracker, which you can find at cbdctracker.org. And this is a map of the entire world. And as we click this, it'll just show you where this is being piloted, where it's being looked. Currently, I've got it on launched. Now, there is this one little country around here. Jamaica has launched its CBDC. What's this one? The Bahamas, they've got the sand dollar. So, not too many outfits have actually brought in a CBDC yet. But let's look at where it's in research. Whoa. Look at that one. Australia. It's in research in the US. It's in research in Canada. It's in research in Italy, in like a lot of Western Europe here, Finland, Norway. It's in research in Chile. It's in research in Peru. It's in research in Namibia, South Africa, Kenya, Tanzania. It's in research, as we've already discovered, in India, but also in Pakistan, in Iran, Saudi Arabia, in Yemen. It's in research in Japan, as we've already discovered, in Indonesia. So it's in research right around the world. Let's see who found proof of concept. Just get rid of the research and the launch. Proof of concept throughout Russia, Kazakhstan, Iran, Japan, Sweden, Brazil, and Australia and New Zealand, as well as Malaysia, Thailand. Where has it been piloted? Well, here we go. In Canada, it's being piloted. In France, it's being piloted. In Saudi Arabia, in Nigeria, as we've discovered already, in Ghana, China, South Africa, Uruguay. Now let's look at all of those combined. Where has it been launched? Where has it been piloted? Where is the proof of concept? Where is the research? There ain't too many parts of the world, first world anyway, that's for sure, where this is not being looked at. There you go. Interestingly, I haven't looked at this, but let's just see where it's been cancelled, if anywhere. Few countries. Philippines cancelled it. Ecuador cancelled it. Finland cancelled it. Denmark cancelled it. And Haiti cancelled it. One little country here. What's this one? Ecuador. Same country. So a few countries have cancelled it. It'd be interesting to find out why they cancelled it. I haven't looked into that, but that would be a very interesting thing to find out. Now, you would have noticed something while we were looking on this map. Where is it being piloted? Where is it being, where is the proof of concept? The research being done? Being done in Australia. Project Atom. Australian wholesale CBDC. Australian retail CBDC. So they're looking at how this can work with businesses and how it can work with you and I, the customers. And there's something called Project Atom. Let's have a look. There's a whole heap of information here on Project Atom. Cointelegraph, Australian Reserve Bank's Project Atom CBDC research finds numerous benefits. This goes back to 2021, last year. So this has been an exploration by the Reserve Bank for a long time. 2-year research project. Findings come down in December 2021. Did you know about this? I mean, a lot of people are hearing about it for the first time in recent times, but did you know that for 2 years, back in 2019, pre-pandemic, that our Reserve Bank, our government, was actually looking at this in something called Project Atom, conducted with private companies, the Commonwealth Bank, the National Bank, Perpetual and Consist, King and Wood, Mallesons. So this wasn't even told to us as members of Parliament when I was a member of Parliament. The Reserve Bank, the government, was essentially looking at how to bring in a digital currency. Now, in recent times, it's come to the fore. This is from last month, the 10th of August, on website Zero Hedge, Australia's central bank working with BIS to launch a digital currency system. Who's BIS? The Bank for International Settlements. So they're launching a pilot program over the course of next year in conjunction with the Bank of the International Settlements to test the benefits of a CBDC. They've got a target date of launching the CBDC sometime before 2030. Remember that date? Can become famous 2030. World Economic Forum said this is the year that you will own nothing, be happy. Very interesting. CBDCs aiming to come in by this target date. This news about Australia adopting or launching a pilot is not something that has been hidden, although you may not have heard about it. It may have escaped your attention. It's been hidden in plain sight. Again, 9th of August, here's Al Jazeera announcing that Australia's central bank has launched a digital currency pilot. Reuters, Australia's central bank launching a digital currency pilot. The Guardian, Australia, why is the Reserve Bank of Australia exploring digital currency options? Well, again, you know, the Guardian is a very left-wing journal, very pro-state. Let's just see, particularly when that state is a Labor government as it is right now, let's just see why the leftists, the globalists, say that the Reserve Bank is looking into it. So the interesting thing here, and I get this right, a CBDC is different from cryptocurrency. And I just want to explain this for people who, you know, may not understand what all this thing about digital currency is. So a CBDC, by its name, central bank digital currency, or central banking digital currency. Centralized, controlled. By who? By the Reserve Bank and by the government of the day. They will control digital money that you receive. So that's a CBDC, centralized, being a very key and operative word in that in terms of CBDCs. What is cryptocurrency? Well, you might have heard terms like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, Stellar Lumen. There's a whole heap of these cryptocurrencies. Some of you might never have heard of, but cryptocurrencies are decentralized. In other words, what's happened here is that someone has created a form of digital currency, and they've backed it up with something. And it's got a lot to do with data. It's very, very complicated, a lot to do with the blockchain. You might have heard of that. A lot to do with the efficient and safe storage of data. So it has a functionality, and out of that functionality becomes something of value, and that something of value is a cryptocurrency that then can be traded. And governments don't control it. What's controlling it is you and I and whoever has actual cryptocurrencies, crypto coins. They control that market. That's why you see it goes up, it goes down, it goes up again. It's, yes, subject to the vagaries of the free market, but it's not subject to the vagaries of government interference and government control, although they're trying to do that. And they're failing in doing that because a lot of these cryptocurrencies were developed so that it would always be, in a way, organic and natural and not subject to government control. That's why in some countries like China, they're absolutely banned because the government can't control them. So cryptocurrencies, because the central banks and the governments have worked out, we can't, we can't come in and lord over the people with these cryptocurrencies. We're going to do our own, hence CBDCs. Okay, so at least the Guardian was good for picking up on this point, which is good point for me to make. Now, look, they're saying that why are they getting involved? Now, look, they're saying the focus is going to be less on technology, but setting on design principles of how a CBDC might look. Is there an appetite? They're saying there is, because of the growing investment in cryptocurrencies. Now, I think that is a pretty poor reason to do it. That is, quite frankly, rubbish. It's a rubbish reason. So because there are these natural cryptocurrencies, if I can call them natural, these organic cryptocurrencies, we're going to create a government-issued one. That's one of the reasons they've given. And there doesn't seem to be too much more than that. But let's go on with this article. So the trial's going to be ring-fenced. Well, it still doesn't give us a reason as to why they're doing it. The rise of stable coins, and what stable coins are cryptocurrencies that are pegged to a particular fiat currency. And so they call them stable coins because they never go below or they'll only go below a fiat currency by a certain percentage. So it's like you're guaranteed that that is going to be stable. It's like a hedge for the cryptocurrency market. And again, these have all been naturally created by individuals rather than something that has been state imposed. So again, this is a nonsense reason. They're already in existence. Why then would you need a central bank or a government to go and create something that's already there? They're saying, despite the name, they're often fraught with risk because they're not necessarily backed 100%. Well, actually, yes, most of them are. Most of them have held up. So, again, a nonsense reason. What do the market participants say? So they're going through what all these different stakeholders in digital currency, or potential stakeholders in digital currency, think the reason is. And again, they're referring to cryptocurrency. So now this person here, Chloe White, independent consultant, Treasury's former Treasury representative on the Council of Financial Regulators that regulates crypto or looks at crypto. What we are seeing happening in crypto markets at the moment very much mirrors what's happening in the traditional system. She means paper money or polymer money. You have a so-called real economy where people are transacting goods, and then you have a financial layer wrapped around it with derivatives, insurance, and so on. She's suggesting there's national security reasons. Well, they always pull that card out when they're trying to push something. So apparently these cryptocurrencies cause a threat. But she's suggesting that we not miss out on emerging technologies and new way of doing business. Again, that's lovely words, but I haven't heard any reason why you would actually want to have a CBDC. But they go on to China. China seems determined to want to leverage this technology. Government-backed, independent, in inverted commas, but government-backed research centre that is that's been set up, basically. The government's funded it, and it's been set up to look at digital finance, CBDCs. And so they're looking for the cases for. Notice that? Cases for. They're not looking at the negatives. They're looking at why you need it. So if you go into a research project loaded with the outcome like that, well, you're only going to find the outcome you want. You don't go and look at something, a particular topic, if you're doing real independent, non-biased, unbiased research. You go in with an open mind. Is this good? Is this bad? What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? What are the opportunities? What are the threats? What type of threats would they be to national security? Would they be to freedom? Would they be to human rights? Would they be to liberty? Would they be to democracy? They're not looking at any of that. All they're looking for is the reasons why to do it. So this is loaded, right? This is a loaded research by the Reserve Bank of Australia, central bank, and the Digital Finance CRC, which has basically been set up with government money for the establishment of a CBDC. So we heard from the Fed earlier, you might remember, about why they thought, or what their thoughts were around a CBDC. Let's hear from our Fed, the Reserve Bank, as to, this is Australia's Fed, the Reserve Bank, as to what a central bank digital currency is. Researching central bank digital currency as a complement to existing forms of money. Well, how long that will remain in place, I have no idea. But I can guarantee you it is not just to complement existing forms of money. So they say the Reserve Bank currently issues two forms: physical money, banknotes, paper, polymer, right? Used by households and businesses to make payments. So they distribute this to government and banks. They don't give it to us direct. And they do have digital money in the form of balances held in accounts that commercial banks and some other types of financial institutions, other lenders, credit unions, building societies, that sort of thing, can hold at the Reserve Bank to settle payment obligations between each other. So this is all they do, is they issue the money, issue far too much of it actually, and that's why we've got high inflation, stagflation, and a whole heap of economic woes coming. But that's not just the Reserve Bank of Australia, that's right across the Western world, and perhaps even broader than just the Western world. And they're also a bit of a clearinghouse in terms of bank debts to each other. They can pay each other through the Reserve Bank. So what would a CBDC be according to the Reserve Bank of Australia? A new digital form of money issued by us, they say, designed for retail, general purpose use. So this is the Reserve Bank getting into a space which they never have before, directly issuing credit, finance to people. It would be like a digital version of banknotes that's essentially universally accessible, or for wholesale use, where it's accessible only to a limited range of the wholesale market, business, basically. So, but the first suggestion was that it could be designed for a retail or general purpose use. So they're saying it could support a number of the bank's objectives, including safeguarding public trust in money. Safeguarding public trust in money. What does that mean? It means potentially, I guess, if you want to take the most innocent option there to what that means, I mean that they can stop the counterfeiting of money. Could mean other things. Promoting efficiency, safety, resilience, and innovation in payment systems and financial market infrastructures. That, ladies and gentlemen, is just fluff. It's what we called Canberra speak for those who might be looking outside of Australia. Canberra is our national capital. But they're saying that they've done research. They looked at various benefits, opportunities, challenges, examining how that it could be designed if a decision was made to implement one distributed ledger technology. And now they talk about their Digital Finance Research Centre, what they're looking at there. Project Atom, which we found out about, was undertaken over a 2-year period, 2020 and 2021, with a whole heap of private companies. Project Dunbar, another one that was taken in 2021, 2022, again involving private companies, including, have a look at this, foreign companies. So the Reserve Bank partnered with the Bank of International Settlements, as we've found out recently, Malaysia, Singapore, South Africa. So a whole heap of central banks working together, working out whether they should bring in a CBDC and what it would look like. So I'm just going to pause there on the websites, and we'll look at a bit more in a moment. But what I want to show you is more videos. Sorry, I see that people are telling me that that it froze for a moment a while ago. Apologies for that if it did freeze. Hopefully that wasn't for too long. Anyway, you may have missed some of what I went through there. But look, we've just looked at why these various countries, including Australia, have been wanting to push CBDCs. Hopefully you've gotten the picture from the last couple of things that I showed. But now I'm going to look at some videos here where we can see the Fed explaining about their CBDCs, why they're pushing it, the Bank of International Settlements. Let's have a look at the Fed first. Here's the chairman of the Fed, Federal Reserve in the US, as to why CBDCs are such a good idea and why they're looking at them.
Looking forward, rapid changes are taking place in the global monetary system that may affect the international role of the dollar in the future. Most major economies already have or are in the process of developing instant 24/7 payments. Our own FedNow service will be coming online in 2023. And in light of the tremendous growth in crypto assets and stablecoins, we are examining whether a U.S. central bank digital currency would improve upon what is an already safe and efficient domestic payment system. As our white paper on this topic notes, a U.S. CBDC could also potentially help maintain the dollar's international standing.
Very interesting. Maintain the dollar's international standing. Now, let's have a look at, and I'll get onto that because that's a very important reason, a real reason as to why, not just because there's crypto or because there's stablecoin cryptos. He's let the cat out of the bag with what he just said there. But let's have a listen to Augustin Carstens from the Bank for International Settlements. He heads up the Bank for International Settlements. He's going to also be talking about the reasons for having CBDCs.
Our analysis on CBDC, in particular for the use of general use, we tend to establish the equivalence with cash, and there is a huge difference there. For example, in cash, we don't know, for example, who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today. A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also we will have the technology to enforce that. Those two issues are extremely important, and that makes a huge difference with respect to what cash is.
Quick segue there, folks. Just make sure that you're liking this YouTube channel, that you're subscribed to it, and click the bell for alerts. Now, take a quick break from CBDCs just to talk about Eureka Free Press. Now, you haven't heard about CBDCs much in the mainstream media. I mean, there was a report from the ABC, but it's quickly brushed to the side when this is such an important thing, and we're going to get on to the reason why it is so important very soon and how it's a threat to our freedom. But you won't hear about this stuff in the mainstream media, and that is why I'm in the throes of launching Eureka Free Press. Eureka Free Press is going to be a one-stop news website set up at eurekafreepress.com. I've got people already employed and waiting in the wings to actually get cracking. We've got someone employed that's going to be curating and helping me. I'm going to be doing some of the curation of stories myself so that we put onto this website all of the important stories for an Australian pro-freedom conservative audience. All of the important stories, so you don't have to go trawling the web finding it. We're going to be looking at mainstream media, yes. Unfortunately, there's some of those that we're going to have to put on there, but we're going to be looking at alternative media, Rebel News, Cauldron Pool, Good Source, The Spectator. We're going to be looking at the best of the best opinion, whether that's from organizations or magazines like The Spectator or Quadrant or Newsweekly, or wherever it's from, and putting that up on the website, as well as the best of the best Substack. We're also going to be looking at international news as well, in international news being relevant to Australians. So all of it will go up on this website. Plus, with your support, we're going to put original news content on there. I got to say that I put out the call for donations and assistance to this venture, and I got a hell of a lot of support. In fact, we met our target that we were looking for and exceeded it. But if you can help support this cause, all you got to do is go to www.georgechristensen.com.au/donate, or go to eurekafreepress.com and you'll find it there. Here's a quick video on what Eureka Free Press is trying to achieve. Again, that website, if you want to go on and show your support to Eureka Free Press and even other ventures like this that I'm doing, go to georgechristensen.com.au/donate. Okay, let's get back to central banking digital currencies now. This, again, I sort of question why the need? Why the need for a CBDC? Well, the answer apparently was, well, because we've got cryptos, because many people are investing in cryptos, because of, we've got stable coins, and stable coins aren't stable enough. We need to have a government-backed digital identity. Well, digital currency. Well, that's really sketchy, really sketchy. And it shows they're covering up something. But let's have a listen. I think this is one of the state central banking governors. I think it's for Vermont, but I stand to be corrected. It might be illuminated in the middle of the video here, but he basically says there is no reason. This is nonsense. Just have a listen to what the president of this state-based US central bank says.
I'm pretty skeptical. I keep asking anybody at the Fed or outside of the Fed to explain to me what problem this is solving. I can send anybody in this room $5 with Venmo right now, right? No, seriously. So what is it that a CBDC could do that Venmo can't do? And all I get is a bunch of hand waving. I get a bunch, well, maybe it's better for financial inclusion. Maybe it's better for cross-border remittances. Maybe, is there any evidence that it is? And, they say, well, what about China? China's doing it. Well, I can see why China would do it. If they want to monitor every one of your transactions, you could do that with the central bank digital currency. You can't do that with Venmo. If you want to impose negative interest rates, you could do that with the central bank digital currency. You can't do that with Venmo. And if you want to directly tax customer accounts, you could do that with the central bank digital currency. You can't do that with Venmo. So I get why China would be interested. Why would the American people be for that?
And I just worked out that was the president of the Reserve Bank of Minneapolis. So there it is. One of them actually belling the cat. It's all about control. There is another reason, and I want to show you a video featuring a fellow by the name of Marin Katusa. Marin Katusa wrote a book called The Colder War. He's actually been one of the most successful hedge fund managers in energy and resource, in the energy and resources sector. He's been all around the world looking at different energy and resource projects, government's actions in relation to them, and wrote this book, The Colder War. He's written a new book now on the rise of America, but the Colder War is very interesting because what he talks about is the fall of the petrodollar. And I got to tell you that actually his new book doesn't gel with me compared to his old book, because his old book was about the fall of the petrodollar, which means the fall of the United States being the center of the financial world. And I just want you to have a listen to this because, and after I'll explain how this links back to CBDC. So just have a listen to this interview with Marin Katusa on the Colder War book that he wrote.
The petrodollar is actually a device invented by Kissinger and Nixon.
The standard of living of all Americans can be traced back to here, the vast oil-rich deserts of Saudi Arabia.
In the early 70s, after the Arab crisis happened with the oil embargoes, OPEC basically tripled the price of oil to the Western world. And at that time, America realized that they were vulnerable because they were importing about 70% of all the oil they consumed.
To secure a reliable foreign source of oil, U.S. President Richard Nixon sent his Secretary of State and National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger to Saudi Arabia for a secret meeting. The result was a pact that still stands to this day.
If Saudi Arabia, which at the time was the world's largest producer of oil, would sell the oil in US dollars, America would defend Saudi Arabia and make sure the House Assad would stay in power.
As a direct result of this U.S.-Saudi agreement, all other oil-producing nations also adopted the dollar as the de facto medium of exchange. Demand for it increased exponentially all over the world, and soon it had a new name, the petrodollar.
Your currency is only as strong as the demand for it, just like anything else, the supply and demand. Why the petrodollar is important, it causes a demand for the US dollar. A lot of Americans don't realize that over 70% of all the $100 bills in the world are actually outside of the US. There's more $100 bills in Russia than there are in America.
This stockpile of US dollars in countries around the world is because oil is bought and sold using the greenback.
If oil starts trading in non-petrodollars, such as gold or a basket of currencies, or if China and Russia start trading in yuan and ruble rather than US dollars, that demand isn't there. And the way of life for the average American will be done. It will be worse than the Great Depression.
To date, anyone who's potentially threatened the status of the petrodollar hasn't fared well. Libyan strongman Muammar Gaddafi publicly pushed for a Pan-African gold-backed currency that he would trade for Libya's oil. He was killed during a US-backed revolution in 2011. And just a few short years before, Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein advocated selling oil for euros.
At this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq.
The U.S. invaded under the guise of looking for WMDs.
Iraq did not have any weapons of mass destruction, and interestingly enough, after the Americans invaded, took over, put in their own government, the whole concept of selling oil in euros never surfaced again.
Today, many countries resent the current petrodollar system, and their leading spokesperson is none other than Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Americans should be very worried about what Putin can do. There is a new Cold War going on. It is the Colder War. That is exactly what's going on. And who's in the center of this push? Vladimir Putin. And the petrodollar is so crucial to the Colder War. The only thing holding America right now at the top is the petrodollar. And let me make it very clear. If the petrodollar dies, so does America as a superpower.
There you you go. There's Murren Katusa, who's was speaking about the petrodollar and his book, The Colder War, which was on that, talking about how Russia was a threat to the petrodollar because they're looking at setting up something new that was backed to resources. And quite frankly, this is what's happening at the moment between China and Russia. So, the whole monetary system that's been developed by the US is on the verge of collapse because if the US dollar is not linked to energy and oil, then its value just plummets. And so therefore, the central banks of the world need something new rather than the US dollar. They need a digital currency. And if you have a digital currency, it's something that can be globally linked. It can be a new reserve currency. Let's have a look at, you wouldn't believe what this event is called when I tell you, but the World Government Summit. Did you know that there was a World Government Forum or World Government Summit that was held? The World Economic Forum has got their finger in this pie, but let's have a listen to something that went on at the World Government Summit earlier this year.
What underpins a world order is always the financial system. I was very privileged. My father was an advisor to Nixon when they came off the gold standard in '71, and so I was brought up with a kind of inside view of how very important the financial structure is to absolutely everything else. And what we're seeing in the world today, I think, is we are on the brink of a dramatic change where we are about to, and I'll say this boldly, we're about to abandon the traditional system of money and accounting and introduce a new one. And the new one, the new accounting, is what we call blockchain. It means digital. It means having a almost perfect record of every single transaction that happens in the economy, which will give us far greater clarity over what's going on. It also raises huge dangers in terms of the balance of power between states and citizens. In my opinion, we're going to need a digital constitution of human rights. But what I see are superpowers introducing digital currency. The Chinese were the first. The US is on the brink, I think, of moving in the same direction. The Europeans have committed to that as well. And the question is, will that new system of digital money and digital accounting accommodate the competing needs of the citizens of all these locations so that every human being has a chance to have a better life? Because that's the only measure of whether a world order really serves.
Well, they're nice fluff words again, but you got to look behind the rhetoric to see what the reality is. Who was that woman that we just heard speaking? Well, let's go back to the websites, looking at the websites here. Her name is Philippa Malmgren. She is a technology entrepreneur and economist specialist, former special assistant to the US George W. Bush. So she is a neocon, one of those people who no doubt pushed for American intervention in various wars in the Middle East. She got her PhD from the London School of Economics. She is one of the elite, member of the Council of Foreign Relations, Chatham House, the Institute for International Strategic Security, and the Royal Geographical Society. So she's well and truly in the elite. That's why she gets a seat at the front of the World Government Summit, where she tells us basically that there is a new era in the making, a new monetary era in the making. We had the petrodollar that was created to establish a world reserve currency, being the US dollar. Now we are in the era of creating something new. So this is part of the reason why they want CBDCs. I believe anyway, and I think that I've shown you the evidence for it. But the other thing goes back to what that state-based Reserve Bank president actually said. It's about control. Now here is Zero Hedge. They're pointing to a column that was submitted by Bullion Star, Ronan Manley there. And I'm not going to go through the whole lot because we're fast running out of time, but one of the most potentially far-reaching trends, they say, is the rollout of CBDCs. and the parallel attack which central bankers are waging on private digital currencies such as crypto coins, right? Now let's go on. They explain what CBDCs are. We've already done that. We're going to get to the crux of it. General purpose CBDC, retail, money for you and me, digital money. That's what most people are referring to when they discuss central bank digital currencies. The general purpose, with the most important to watch when they attempt their rollouts, to distribute to billions of people across the world in digital cash tokens. As you can guess, CBDCs will be tied to user identities. Read this, will be tied to user identities and digital IDs. This is important, folks. We know that a digital identity system is being rolled out in Australia, being rolled out right around the world. Straight off the bat, it says, they allow for total surveillance by the state and torpedo any chance of anonymity. Go back to that reason that the Federal Reserve said was for money, for CBDCs. What did they say? Safeguarding public trust in money. Well, which public are they talking about? They're talking about you and I, or are they talking about government trust in money? Straight off the bat, this is from Bullion Star, column on Zero Hedge. Straight off the bat, they allow for total surveillance by the state, torpedo any chance of anonymity. Okay. So Jim Rickards, and I got to tell you, if you're not onto Jim Rickards, get onto Jim Rickards, or James Rickards as he's called here. The Daily Reckoning Australia runs his material. He's got a whole heap of books. He's predicted a lot of this stuff. Jim Rickards is fantastic as far as I'm concerned. So he has been banging on for a while now about an executive order that the Biden administration, or that Joe Biden himself brought down. I'm just going to see, no, he doesn't say what the executive order is, but an executive order that they brought down, which is basically designed to end the US dollar and to bring in the digital dollar. So he talks about the US defense digital dollars almost here. They're coming faster than anticipated. There's a reason why that is. The digital yuan's here is introduced in China during the Winter Olympics last February. 9 other countries have launched CBDCs. We've already gone through this. A digital dollar is still a dollar, he says. It's a new payment channel. Just that currency never exists in physical form. It's always digital. Ownership is recorded on a ledger maintained by the central bank. You'll have accounts show how many digital dollars you own. The government will know how much money you have at any given time. So we go on. This is how it'll work. They receive the money by wire transfer. They'll go shopping with the card, pay bills online. They're digital and encrypted. That happens right now, right? So the difference is, you won't need banks, you won't need a credit card, you won't even need PayPal or whatever else you might use. Everything can be done through the Fed, through the central bank in your country, with a single account for payment and receipts. They would get rid of the entire banking and credit card sectors to a great extent. But here is the other big difference. It'll give the government control of your money and the ability to put you under constant surveillance. So that's Jim Rickards. He's got another article here. I tell you, go to the Daily Reckoning, look at this article. Welcome to 1984. That is a reason. But they go on the Daily Reckoning to the 3 reasons why you may be worried about CBDCs, right? So let's look at these 3 reasons. Privacy and surveillance. It does away with privacy. It introduces surveillance in your wallet, your digital wallet. The government of the day will know what you actually spend your money on. Now, I'm going to talk a bit more about that in a moment. It stifles innovation, crimps choice, and obviously, as I said, disintermediation, where they're getting rid of banks, credit card companies and all that, so that's going to cause issues. So let's just have a look at control. And there's some people that I'm going to stop sharing that screen. There's some people here that have belled the cat. That, you know, every so often the matrix breaks, someone pops out and says something. Here's some guy from the UK. Actually, he's the deputy chair of a parliamentary committee over there that's looking into these matters, a member of parliament in the UK. And in an interview, he he lets loose on what government is doing and interfering in your privacy and your affairs.
I mean, we're now looking at digital IDs. We're looking at a social credit system being trialled to get people to deal with obesity. Central bank digital currencies will enable the state to enormously intervene in our lives. And, you know, reasonably, you can sit back and say, wow, what is going on with the change in the relationship between the individual and the state? And I can see why some people are quite frightened.
I have to say, I mean, neither you nor I are conspiracy theorists at all. But I have to say that the government is giving an awful lot of ammunition to conspiracy theorists. You were saying.
Yeah, well, yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. And, you know, it's not just conspiracy theorists, as they like to throw out there, the pejorative, that are saying this. There are some very, very eminent professors that are talking now about control that these CBDCs will have over people. Let's go to one of these professors. I will just
How have
bring
the
the video
central
up.
banks, this is my last slide because my 12 minutes is just up, have reacted to the truth coming out? They admit that they've been telling porkies, and now they propose to increase their power. So central bankers belatedly admit, oh, now that you've mentioned it, yes, banks create the money supply. So let's abolish that now. And also, by the way, let's abolish cash. So what should we do? Well, introduce digital cyber currency that central banks issue and control, and thereby gain total control over all economic transactions, decisions, and the whole lot you've just heard from the CEO of the GDI. So the greatest concentration of central banking power in history is really the bid they're aiming at. That's the central bank's goal. And, of course, digital accounts of dissenters and regime critics could be switched off. It'd be very difficult to even purchase necessities. So this is an Orwellian dystopia of total control, the end of any freedoms. That's really what central banks are aiming at. Several central banks have, like the Bank of England, already prepared their microchip implant, RFID chip, to be implanted under your skin. And why is the sudden discussion about universal basic income from all the grassroots and inverted commas movements and billionaires? Oh, universal basic income is the bribe for you to accept the microchip. The overarching trend of the 20th century is concentration of power in the hands of the few. That's what we have to keep in mind. We have to work against this. We don't want to have these unaccountable central planners making decisions. We need decentralization, and the solution therefore is to maintain public money in the hands of local community banks, decentralize decision-making, give local people the power in the form of local public banks and local not-for-profit community banks. As I walked in, I was delighted to see that the Gottlieb Duttweiler Institute is also about Genossenschaften, cooperatives, and of course, the majority of banks in Germany are cooperative banks, and that's really what we need. So.
There you go. Now, I've forgotten the name of that professor, but from the University of Southampton, I believe, and that was a seminar that they held there with a whole heap of businesses and other academics, where they're talking about CBDCs. So it's about control. It will lead to control. Here is someone that you may recognise who was very big on the COVID front, also talking about this.
Of central bank explained that with CBDC as a replacement or a digital currency, they can make the rules of how the currency is used, and they can enforce the rules centrally. Let that sit in centrally. So one great activist said that the implementation of the passports is the end of human liberty in the West, and that is in fact true if we let this control grid go in. Robert F. Kennedy says you can't stop tyranny by complying. And so what I ask you, we cannot comply with the mandates, we cannot comply with the passports, we cannot comply with any part of a financial control grid, whether they change the name from passports and do it with biometrics and ID, whichever way they do it. So this is the fight for freedom and liberty. And what I will tell you again as an investment advisor, most of our wealth in the West comes from the benefits of freedom. And when you give away freedom, you give away anything. When the World Economic Forum says it's 2030 and you have no assets and you're happy. What I hear is it's 2030, we have stripped you of your assets, which may include stripping you of your children, and you're mind controlled. Ladies and gentlemen, don't let that happen.
So who was that? That was Catherine Austin Fitz, who, as I said, you would have heard a lot from her during COVID. She was very much someone who was a naysayer against all the authoritarianism that we saw during that period. But she's also an investment banker, and she was the former secretary, or assistant secretary, I should say, of the Department of Housing and Urban Development over in the United States. So not a dummy, and she's out there saying this is all about control. Let's finally go back to a couple more of the websites before we wrap up. So we've looked at what a central bank digital currency is. We've also looked at, sorry folks, just bear with me here. We've also looked at how this is a threat to you and your way of life. And I think that that is clear. This is going to be government control. The one thing that I haven't said thus far is how this is going to be a programmable system. Now that is the scary part of it. Now, what does that mean? That means that, and this is why they're spending so much time doing the research into how this could be rolled out, right? It's very easy to create a digital currency. They're already in existence. They don't need to do a whole heap of research to work out how digital currency works. I mean, hell, PayPal's had digital transactions for a long time. Bitcoin's in existence, Ethereum. Have a look at how many cryptos are in existence. If a government wanted to go and set up a digital currency, it could do so right now. The question's not about how to get stability and security in the system. The question really is about how to get programmability into the system. Now, Britain, in Chancellor of the Exchequer, actually said this, that they were looking at programmability. What does programmability mean? Well, programmability means that they will be able to say to you when they issue you your digital currency that this can be used for certain types of spending. For instance, let me give you the most benign example. And it's not very benign at all, but it just shows you how bad this could be. So you might be a nurse or a doctor who works for the Victorian Health Department or any health department, and they might issue you your finance, your salary, via a digital currency, a central banking digital currency. And because the employer actually has a hand in the programmability, they could set it up to say, well, we only want our employees to be healthy people. So therefore, we're not going to allow any of the currency, digital currency that we issue to our employees to be used on cigarettes, to be used on vaping, to be used on alcohol. Perhaps they won't let it be used on fast food. They want healthy employees. After all, they're the Department of Health. Would that be accepted by the public? So let's just look at the fact that we've been through 2 years of, absolute and utter propaganda that has led to average citizens hating on fellow citizens because they just wanted to make a decision about their own body. What about teachers in the state of Queensland in Australia who have now found that their salaries have been cut because they didn't want to do something to their body? They didn't want to undertake a medical procedure. Now, this sort of stuff has already happened. To think that it won't happen, and it won't happen without some level of support from some sectors of the public, you've got to have your head in the sand. And so this could go right down the chain. Think about programmability when it comes to the climate change scare. So I say, well, we're going to bring in a limit on what people can spend in relation to climate change. Your carbon footprint can't be too big in terms of what you spend. So on everyone that gets issued this CBDC, it will cut off after a certain point, and you think that's crazy. Let me tell you that there is a credit card already in existence which actually has a carbon footprint on it. So you can spend so much and you get up to that point and boom, you've hit the daily carbon limit. Now, they can do this already. They can do it already. You can voluntarily go into a system where your carbon credits are checked. You hit the limit, you can't spend any more, or else you're a bad boy or a bad girl because you're harming the environment now. So this is in existence. And to think that it's not going to be merged into a digital currency, a central banking digital currency, again, I say, you've just got to have your head in the sand to think that that is, that won't happen. So let's have a look back at our websites. I want to leave you with some hope, ladies and gentlemen. But firstly, I want to tell you who's really behind all of this. World Economic Forum. Why is it being pushed all over the world? Because the World Economic Forum is pushing it. This is one of many pages you can see on the World Economic Forum website, weforum.org, which is pushing a digital currency, a central banking digital currency. Is an article by the socialist Christine Lagarde, president of the European Central Bank. If we go right down to the bottom, there'll probably be a few more website. No, there's not. Sorry, I led you up the garden path there, but there are, trust me, there are a heap of websites that the World Economic Forum have got, a heap of blogs that they've got up there pushing a central banking digital currency. They are right well and truly behind it. It's part and parcel of their Great Reset, and their Great Reset involves a war on cash. Now, we've had this before in Australia. We've had the precursor to this. It happened only a few years ago when I was a member of Parliament in Australia. Here's Cash Matters, a website that's set up talking about how Australia's war on cash and the $10,000 cash ban would have restricted your civil liberties. Now, this cash ban did not happen. Some people may recall it. The government of the day, it was the former Morrison government, was pushing for cash transactions of $10,000 or greater to be banned in Australia. You would no longer be able to do it. It would be illegal. Instead, you had to do it digitally. And that meant that basically the government was getting rid of a form of legal tender. In other words, if your transaction was $10,000 or more, you could not actually deal with it in what was considered beforehand to be legal tender, and that was paper or polymer cash. Now you would have to do it online. And so it was sending out paper money or polymer money, plastic money, and bringing in a private corporation, a bank, in other words, as being part of your, being the only form of legal tender you're able to utilize for a $10,000 transaction. Now, remember this name, economist John Adams. I got to tell you, this guy was one of the earliest people onto this. He had been warning about it for a long, long time, and he's warning now about CBDCs. If you haven't tuned in to the YouTube show In the Interest of the Money with John Adams and Martin North, do so, because a lot of this stuff they've talked about ages ago, and I mean ages ago. They are on the ball, these two. Tune into this guy, John Adams. He was the one, when I was a member of Parliament, who alerted me to this nonsense. And as a result, this currency bill, when the government was trying to trample on your freedom, restricting the use of cash for transactions of $10,000 or over, well, there was a meeting of all government MPs. And here's the Daily Reckoning talking about this. And I just want to show you here, this is big noting. But we had a whole heap of legitimate businesses coming out pushing against the cash ban. And then there was a member of the, a meeting of the party about it, members from the government, which included people like Russell Broadband, Barnaby Joyce, and who's this guy? Me, George Christensen, and Pat Conahan. We got up and we said, no, we can't do this. This is an attack on civil liberties. This is replacing what should be legal tender with a form of corporatism. this is wrong and this should not be accepted. So we actually, and here we go, John Adams again, his name pops up. So what happened as a result of that people power push against this? What happened to these earlier, these people who rang the alarm bell, like John Adams, the MPs like me who stood up and said, no, we cannot do it. You know what happened? They got rid of their $10,000 cash ban. Dead, never, thankfully, to ever return. So we got rid of it, folks, and we can get rid of this World Economic Forum agenda again. Here we go again, the World Economic Forum arguing the case for CBDCs. We can stop this agenda, and that's what I want to end on this note. We can only stop this agenda if we just get united, if we just get informed. And here's the last thing that I want to leave you with. Here is the pathway to total surveillance. We've already had step one. Step one is vaccine passports. We had it. We had it in Australia. It was brought in right under our very noses. It was there before we even realised it was there. And people were actively able to be discriminated against. You weren't allowed to go to a coffee shop. You weren't allowed to go to a restaurant. You weren't allowed to go to a sporting event, a museum, an art gallery. You were excluded from everyday society. Why? Because you decided yourself that you wanted bodily autonomy. You didn't want someone else telling you what medical treatment that you needed to have, that you must have, what substance that you needed squirted into your own body. That was outrageous that they did that. People actually lost their jobs over that. People are still out of a job because of that. So this is step one on the path to total surveillance. I get quite upset about it. You can hear this in my voice. I am angry about the fact that government did this to you, the people. It was wrong, but it was step one, ladies and gentlemen. Step two is to force upon you a digital identity. And they're doing it. Have a look. Dig deep. Don't just look at what they're saying and how this is all going to be about stopping people from having to suffer identity theft. When did you last suffer identity theft? How many people do you know that ever have had their identity thieved? This is nonsense. It's another excuse. It's like the excuse behind CBDCs. Oh, we're doing it because of crypto. Oh, we're doing it because of stablecoins. Nonsense. You're doing it because the petrodollar is collapsing or about to collapse. And you're also doing it to institute total control over the populace. You need a new reserve currency system for your great reset. And part of that is going to be all about control. You know, welcome to 2030, where we own nothing and we're happy. So the digital identity system is in the throes of coming in. I believe we can still stop it. If we can't stop a digital identity system from coming into place, then I'm afraid, folks, it will be a slippery slope downhill from there on in. We will have CBDCs, and they will be linked to the digital currency as we've talked about before. And that link will ensure that whatever you do, whatever you say, whatever you're reading, whatever political affiliations or political actions that you take, it will be linked to what you are paid. You will be controlled, because if you do the wrong thing by the view of the government or the view of the central bank or the view of the employer, you'll be cut off. In fact, there might be some things that actually you want to do, you go and try to do, but given that it's a programmable CBDC, you won't be able to do. You want to go and you want to buy a book about the Great Reset to learn more. You might find transaction declined. Why? Because we don't want you reading that material. That material is anti-society. This is the future, ladies and gentlemen, unless we take a stand against it. And then finally, the social credit system. In fact, I got to say, not finally, it's enmeshed within the whole thing, where they can restrict your money. We already got a social credit system happening, as I said, in Queensland, Australia, where teachers who decided that they wanted to exercise their own rights around bodily autonomy and stop having injected into them a substance which did not have long-term safety data. And as a result, they've had their pay cut by weeks and weeks and weeks. And it's been accepted, it's being done. So the pathway, the total surveillance, vaccine passports, we've had it, digital identity system. They've got legislation before the Australian Parliament. Look around the world. This is coming into effect. It's before many different parliaments, being explored by many different governments. Central bank digital currency currently being researched or piloted by many governments all around the world. It's already in effect in some countries. China's right down the track because they want control over everyone. But this is the end game. The end game. Total control. And we end up with a social credit system. And we become just like China. And every last vestige of Western civilization, freedoms, liberty, freedom of speech, freedom of conscience, freedom of thought, freedom of faith, freedom of association, freedom of movement. All gone. All gone. I'm not over-egging it, folks. This is the pathway to total control and total surveillance. And we can't let it happen. When you hear the government and the press, if they ever do, if the press ever do pull their finger out, if the press ever do grow a backbone and start talking about the digital identity plan, I tell you what, if the press don't talk about it, it'll be up on my Eureka Free Press website. I'll be screaming from the rooftops about this, ladies and gentlemen. I will not shut up about a digital identity system. When they go to bring it in, you need to go and see your local member of parliament. You need to go and see your senators. You need to bombard them with calls. You need to bombard them with emails. You need to do everything to alert and wake up other people to the digital identity agenda. Because it is we've already had the precursor. The precursor has been the vaccine passports. But we need to head it off at the pass at the digital ID system that they're bringing in. That is the goal. If we can't stop digital IDs, we're going to have digital IDs linked with CBDCs, and then we're going to have a social credit system. And then, as I say here, it's game over. It's game over. Good night. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. Be good little boys and girls. Do what government tells you. I will end all of this because I've got a daughter. I've got a family. I'll fight for as long as I can fight, but I don't want to see my daughter harmed. I don't want to see my family harmed. I don't want to end up in a jail cell away from my daughter. But we need to cut this off at the pass before it gets to that stage. That's what I'm telling you. That's what I'm telling you. Take a screenshot of this page, folks. Take a screenshot. Here, I'll clear that little logo off the page so you can take a screenshot of this page here and send it to everyone you know. This is the pathway to total control, to total surveillance. Vaccine passports, done. Digital identity system, coming, if we don't stop it. CBDCs, in pilot, right now. Social credit system. You think it's crazy? You think it's crazy that we could have a social credit system? Well, we know China's already got one. Let me give you two factoids. You can go and look at this yourself if you think that I'm wrong, that I'm stretching too far, that this is some crazy conspiracy theory. In one of the provinces, like a state in Italy, they have already brought in a voluntary social credit system. Why the hell do you need that? Why the hell do you need a social credit system? And it's a skip and a jump from voluntary to compulsory. Governments never bring in something compulsory straight away unless it's got large-scale public support. They'll bring it in voluntarily. Look, in fact, we've got a voluntary digital identity system in Australia. You can go and get a digital identity now if you want. You can go and get it. You can go and sign up for it. Have a look at MyGov. They've got MyGov ID. That is the digital identity system. So you sign up for it voluntarily, and then when it hits critical mass, oh, you know what? We can do this compulsory because guess what? Either the majority or a substantial minority already have this system that we've set up, and so we don't need to convince them. It's going to be no change to them. That's how they do this. So a voluntary social credit system being established in a province of Italy. There was a member of parliament in the United Kingdom recently who got up in the House of Commons and he said that anyone who has a social media account should be issued a truth score by the state. A truth score. Have you read 1984, The Ministry of Truth? Have you watched the movie, 1984? The one with, is it John Hunt? And seen the outcome of that dystopian move, having a truth score, a government-instituted truth score. Do you know it's not just happening in the UK where that idea is being proposed, but Joe Biden in the United States actually had the Department of Homeland Security set up this disinformation board. They quickly disbanded it after they realized that this wasn't a good look in the land of the free. But I got to tell you, all of its functions would without a doubt have been subsumed into certain desks and offices and agencies within the Department of Homeland Security. Do you know that in Australia, the outgoing Morrison government was supposed to be conservative, actually put in place a plan of giving powers to the Australian Communications and Media Authority to actually look into disinformation, something that without a doubt we know is completely in the eye of the beholder these days, to look into disinformation on social media and to crack down on these already censorious social media companies if they weren't doing anything about apparent disinformation online. Under that plan, I probably would have been shut down by now off Facebook, off YouTube, off Telegram even, because they didn't actually say that this would only apply to the big ones. This would apply to all of them. Government now imposing its will on free speech platforms because they don't like free speech, because they can brand something as disinformation even when it's not. It's just a difference of opinion, or perhaps it's even the truth coming out. They don't like that because it doesn't suit their agenda. Take a screenshot of this slide, folks. The path to total surveillance. Email it to someone you know, to many people you know, and tell them we have to head off the digital ID system because that is the linchpin. That is the linchpin towards everything, including a CBDC, which will end up being programmable to say where you can spend your hard-earned and where you can't, on what you can spend it on and what you can't. And that is the pathway to total control. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining me for what has been a rather in-depth program here. We've gone for nearly an hour and a half, and you've been with me all the way. I'm going to be writing about this in my Nation First blog. I know all of the people who are online right now are paid subscribers. Please, if you want to share, donate, even a subscription to Nation First to someone, you can do that. I'm going to put that in the email on Monday so that you can share this information with them. I will have this video in there on Monday so that you can share that with other people. Thank you very much for joining me. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless our nation. And let's win back freedom for the people, for our country. Thank you so much for joining me for this special briefing, live briefing on how CBDCs are a threat to your freedom.